In this video, I am going to walk you through the Procreate drawing process of this piece of illustration, which was published as a series of YouTube real-time drawing videos on my channel. For those who loves tips and tricks, you're in the right place. Let's get to work. So first, I'm going to sketch, and I'm going to use the colored pencils. By the way, all the Procreate brushes I am going to use in this video are created by me, and you can check them out in the link below. But seriously, you can use any other brushes just to follow along. So first I'm gonna choose darker color for sketching. So at this point, I'm gonna give myself a new layer by hitting the plus sign, and then now I have a new layer. So this one is going to be just very, very rough sketch. It doesn't have to be super accurate. It's not a tight sketch. If you want, you can erase parts of it as you go. It's funny that this type of mushrooms, this one in the middle, is very commonly drawn, but they are actually not edible. So if you see them in real life, do not eat them. They're pretty easy to spot, usually red with white spots. There's our first one, and then I'm gonna draw maybe one of the second type. This one is actually edible. I think the nickname is called Inky Cap, because this one turns black very soon after it emerges from the ground. But do make sure you know what you're doing. Do not take my advice and eat something because if you see this video. And this one, usually in nature, this kind of mushroom is white. It may be a little bit off-white, but I feel like it'll be more fun to have some color. So I colored it purplish blue. So that's pretty much my sketch here. I'm just gonna tackle these three. So I'm gonna use 2-finger tap on my layer to activate the opacity option, and then just slide 1 finger across the screen to turn down opacity. And then I'm gonna create a new layer for my mushrooms. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. So the first one is red. So I'm gonna use this like earthy red. Just gonna go ahead and color. Although this one is a little bit different, because you can see there's some kind of like screen printing effect. That is because originally I used a different brush. So this is under the same colored pencil pack, but the second option is called a pencil shader. So what this one does is that, let me just make the pencil a little bit bigger so you can see better. So on the same layer, let's create a new doodle layer. If I draw one shape and then move on to the next, the overlapped area will become darker. It will give you this like natural shading effect. And for the same reason, we have the creamy pencil highlighter version of it. So for this version, after we lay down the same layer, And then when we draw on top of it without creating a new layer, we have like a highlighted effect. This comes really handy when you try to create textures without switching between colors back and forth all the time. So I think I'm gonna try it out here. I'm gonna delete this doodle layer and then switch back to my shader. All right, so I'm gonna zoom in and keep drawing. So for the white spots, I'm just gonna draw on top at the very end instead of drawing around it, just for the sake of time. I really like the intersection that is naturally created by just coloring it in without having to use the color drop. You see this like almost the ripple effect that you don't really even see on paper as much with the pencil, but it does create some kind of yummy texture on otherwise flat surface. So I'm just gonna keep on drawing until I have the whole cap done. And if you want to go even further with the texture, you can use the same method, but on a separate layer. Maybe use a slightly different shade of red and just lay them on top of each other. That will really make your texture pop. But for the sake of time, I'm gonna demo on drawing just one layer for now. Okay, perfect. So now we have this one layer down. I'm gonna switch back to the normal pencil, just draw around it to finish the cap. Isn't that nice to have the undo option? All right. So now I'm gonna switch back to the shader pencil to draw the stem. I believe in reality the stem is off-white, but just for the sake of visual interest, I'm gonna keep the same color of red just for the fun of it. I'm gonna stop right above this little skirt thing. If you look at the original mushroom, there's a gap. This is to indicate like space relations. I'm gonna draw the skirt on a separate layer. In case if I wanna change color of the skirt later, I still can without having to affect the rest of the layer. That being said, I'm gonna use a separate layer for the bottom stem. Still using the shader pencil. Because it overlaps with the overlapped area appear a bit darker, so you do have to be a little more intentional about where your lines meet. All right, so here we have a basic stem, and then I'm gonna create a new layer to use off-white color for the white spots. I'm gonna use the highlighter version and then maybe increase the size of the pencil just a tiny bit. Okay, good. You might be able to hear the faint sound of grass mowing. Oh well. All right, there you go. If you want the spot to be a little less prominent, you can dial down the opacity a little bit. This is good enough for me. So I am going to add a layer underneath this mushroom to fill in the area with this off yellow, like this pale, kind of a creamy color. So I'm gonna go back to my creamy pencil and then just draw around it. This seems to be really, really dark and kind of blends in with the red. So I'm gonna delete it and then try a different one. Okay, this is better. You might not be able to see as well on screen, but it is a kind of like faint peachy color. Because that's the direction of the gills are like radiating from the center. So that's gonna be the direction of my lines as well. Actually, I don't remember how did I handle this area in my original drawing video. But like I said earlier in other videos of the same series, it's a gift that we have time to reflect. Even just drawing almost exactly the same thing, you have a slightly different process. And that makes practicing more fun. All right. And now I'm gonna create a new layer on top and pick a kind of earthy brown color for the gills. I'm not gonna draw every single gill ever, just symbolically spaced version of it. There's one more pencil in the pack that I haven't used in this video yet. It's for shading larger area. So you know that in real life, when you hold a pencil and then you tilt it a little bit, it covers larger area. And this one works the same way. I'll show you in a bit. So let me create a new doodle layer and then choose a brighter color to show you. So for example, I'm gonna click on this tilt shader. If I just like draw pointing down, it works just like normal pencil. But if I'm tilting my pencil, like use it as a kind of like charcoal, it has a darker color. So I have spent a lot of time trying to figure this out and trying to make Apple Pencil behave like a colored pencil, pretty much. And these are the 4 brushes that I absolutely love. So I'm gonna delete this doodle layer and keep on working through. In the original drawing, we have some lines just to add more personality to the illustration. So I'm gonna do that. They're pretty symbolic. You might be wondering, do I have to have this pencil set to create this drawing? The answer is, of course, no. I am going to show you how to create this type of effect without my pencil, with just like regular pencil. For example, if you were to draw, let's pick a different color here. You can draw one shape, and then to create this kind of overlapped darker area, you just need to create a new layer. Change the blending mode to multiply. And on the new layer, this effect will show. So if you can be diligent about creating new layers, you can totally just create the same effect. I'm just lazy, so I made a pencil so I don't have to make like 20 layers for a tiny area. Anyways, so that's our first mushroom. Actually, looking back, I want the contrast to be a little bit stronger, so I'm gonna change the blending mode to multiply. All right, better. So now moving on to our inky cap. I'm gonna create a new layer for it. Maybe this gray. Yep, I have this. And then I'm gonna color mostly just on top with the same color, and I'll switch to a different color for the bottom portion of it. For this area right here, I'm gonna use brownish color. All right. And then at the end, we'll add the highlights and the spots. I'm gonna create a brightish brown. Let's see what's going on here. I'm just gonna overlap a little bit. And I do want to change the blending mode so that the top doesn't look too awkward. Right now it looks like these two layers have nothing to do with each other. You can also switch the your mark a little bit. For example, I'm mostly using straight lines, but you can use like circles or like other crosshatch marks, whatever that makes sense. So I'm gonna change the blending mode. I'm just gonna go through the list. Maybe I'll still do multiply. And then I will switch this layer to under. And then change the top one to multiply too. All right, so now I'm gonna add a bit of highlight. I don't know if you can see it clearly. Over here, the highlight is not like one uniformed color. So I'm gonna pick my creamy pencil highlighter to do that job. And now I have a yellow. I'm just gonna draw on top. This yellow is actually a little too bright. It's not really natural. Let's see. Okay, much better. See, because this is a highlighter pencil, when you draw on top of this shape, it gives you a lighter value. So I really like the flexibility. Again, if you want to create the same effect with the regular pencil, you can create separate layers and change the blending modes. That's pretty much the same thing. So I think I'm going to change the gray to something else. It feels like this gray color is a little too cool. I'm going to warm it up a little bit. So what I did was to hit adjustment and hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'm going to adjust the hue and to make it warmer. Another way to do this, if you already have a target color that you really like, so I'm just gonna cancel whatever I did here. I'm gonna create a new layer on top and then change that into a clipping mask and then use that as a coloring layer. So I'm gonna sample the brown here by long press. And then I'm just gonna use color drop. And now the whole thing is brown. And then once you have that color, you can adjust the brightness or saturation to your liking. If you want, I'm gonna merge all 3 layers right now. And another thing you can do is to smudge it. So to help the blending a little bit better. I don't think I've used this in the original one, but I'm just gonna show you real quick. So this finger icon right here next to the brush, tap on it, and you can select whatever you want. I'm gonna stick to my colored pencils. This is gonna be the shape of the blending. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. And then just draw. It's like smudgy finger, pretty much. As you can see, it created this little ombre effect that can make the edges a little softer. Depends on the direction of your drawing or blending. It can bring color from one area to another. I think this is really cool. All right, so maybe I'm gonna add a little more of the spots in this part. It's just gonna be super general and rough. All right, here is our second mushroom. Looks like there's a bit highlight here. So I'm gonna create a new layer and then use, well, let's try this color. And then just create some highlight here. And then you can change the blending mode to make it like pop even more. Whatever flows your boat. Okay, I'm happy with this. And then I'm gonna move on to this little guy. I'm gonna change it to a, yeah, I'm actually gonna use this yellow on a separate layer. I'm gonna create some kind of gradation effect. So one color here, and I'm gonna use a slightly different shade for the next level. I'm gonna tap on the yellow and then go to the value and then make it a little bit darker by decreasing the brightness. And then do the same thing, decrease the brightness. I'm gonna create a new layer so it kind of, the darker mark kind of sit under the top cap. So I'm gonna merge this layer down and then change the color because the yellow kind of doesn't remind me of mushroom at all. Well, I guess neither did pink, but I do like this pink. So I'm gonna go with it. Tap on screen and hit apply. And I'm just gonna create a stem that is somewhat earthy color. There are different ways of changing colors. I like to use hue, brightness, and saturation, but some people also like to use curves. If you have very specific areas or like colors, targeted colors that you want to change. For example, I have the pink cap selected. I'm gonna delete my original sketch so there's no like ghost pixels under. This works better if you use curve. It works better if you have multiple colors. So I'm gonna select this mushroom and then go to curves. And I can be super technical about what these options mean, but I think what works the best is to play with it. To be honest, just select one of the options and then lift the curve up and down. And you can target the red, green, or the blue and only change that portion. Ooh, I actually really like this. I'm gonna leave it that way. So apply, and another way to do that is to do color balance. So this one it's pretty self-explanatory. You can shift the color to more cyan or to more red, or in the same way, more magenta or more green. But the best way is just to play with it. And don't think too much about theory because it can be really frustrating to try to memorize for something so visual. There's nothing wrong if you already haven't memorized. Good for you. Anyways, I think that's gonna be my little mushroom groups. All right. If you like my teaching style, I have close to 30 illustration classes on Skillshare. You can grab your free trial link in the description today to kickstart your creative journey. I will see you in the next video.